Okay, so next up, we got Tony Bailey. He's from the state NRCS office, and you'll have to tell him what your title is because I can't ever remember between you and Shannon. But he's going to give a quick talk about conservation planning. I know we're not all conservation planners, but I think it's worthwhile for all of us to be somewhat familiar with what's going on in the NRCS world, and because we all work together, right? So, Tony.
All right, great. Appreciate it, Michael. Again, state conservation agronomist, work at the state office, so a variety of things with nutrient pest management, soil health, another confined livestock. Another one of those things is organic and specialty crops and things like that. So I just want to share a little bit about some of the roles that NRCS plays in this, and it's a very small piece of that. How we might fit into this, with the whole picture of partnership, Team Ag, and all those different things. But one of the things that really struck me since our trip out to Rodale and some conversations since then is the opportunities for agriculture in Indiana to become involved in organic production. When we heard about how much of the feed inputs and that were being shipped in from other countries, I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Indiana and across the country. So anyways, anything we can do to work together to try and assist those producers is certainly very welcome. So I want to touch on just a few little things that NRCS might do related to this. One of those things is conservation planning. As important as I think it is, it's a very small piece of the organic system plan, but it can fit into there. Not always is that's going to be a major part, but there's different ways it might be referenced as far as our conservation practice standards and different things. But there are some ways that we look at things in some regards similar to the way that the organic program does related to the resources and things like that. It's one of the things that on any operation we're trying to do what we can to have to maintain, improve the resources, the biodiversity that's out there, whether we're strictly in crops with livestock, including other areas for wildlife, managing that land for the best uses that it might have. So trying to work with the different ways that this might fit into the organic system plan. And this is just one of the pieces that the plan that might show up, and it might refer to the conservation, natural resource management. Sorry, it's about a font of 10 for those of you in the back row. But conservation, natural resource management.
So could you click back, Tony? Just to clarify on that, so the idea here is that some certifiers in their application will pose a question like this: do you have a current conservation plan or contract with NRCS or other conservation agency? Yes, then you can provide information about that plan and include it as an addendum. And if not, I think that in this application they're going to drill you with more detailed questions to tease that information out. So you're not going to get this question from all certifiers, but you are going to get questions about conservation and natural resource management from all certifiers. It's just whether or not they're asking about if you have a conservation plan. Okay, so.
And I would guess between certifiers, how that's looked at is a little bit different. Again, like you're talking about, what's required and what's not. So that's always probably a little bit of an interesting point. As important as that conservation planning is, it is the same on the organic farm as it is on the non-organic farm. So we have a process we go through identifying the different resource concerns, trying to figure out how we might address some of those, working with the producers on trying to figure those out. And but it's the same. I think it's one of those things that at times we've been a little hesitant of what do we do with an organic operation, but that general assessment of those resource concerns is similar. Shouldn't be a stretch for our folks to go out and work with those facilities. We'll talk about how that might fit in though in that planning process. Those resource concerns I identified, whether it's soil erosion, wind and water, whether it's water quality concerns from sediment, nutrients, phosphorus, pesticides, whether it's water quantity issues, whether it's resource concerns related to livestock or forestry. It's going to be the same on organic operations as it is on a non-organic operation. So all those different resource concerns, we have checklists that we use, and all those apply to both these different operations. The part of that that's a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a difference here is that that implementation of the practices. So we start talking about those resource concerns, the different practices that we might use. I think we'll get into some more details on those conservation practices later on. But it's those implementation that will be a little bit different on some of those organic operations. It was brought up already that need to make sure that we have good communication. We may be saying we're going to do cover crops. We need to make sure how that fits into the plan. Make sure that whatever seed and however we're going to do that is going to fit into that. But again, like it was brought out, that it's responsibility of the producers. I think sometimes we've had a little bit of a challenge of saying, oh, we're really concerned about that, so we don't want to do anything with that. Well, we can still assist with that part of it, of trying to identify what practices might be able to be used, but as long as they're working with their certifier, and then that ultimate responsibility falls back to the producer. So I think that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. It doesn't just, for those of us concerned about what can we do with theirs, a lot of that falls back to them too. Communication is needed. A variety of different financial assistance. Others here in the room have that as well. Biggest thing on this is that locally they'll just need to work with the local office, NRCS, SWCD, as far as having them come out and assess the resource concerns, what practices might be there, how that might fit into contracts, the challenges of contracts, making sure that it's understood what's going to be involved in that. And then there's also some other self-certification as far as the overall with organic, how they fit into with working with us. And one of those pieces is completing a self-certification worksheet and making sure then that the practices that we're going to put into that contract, again, are meeting up with what's going to be in that organic system plan. One of the practices that's come out in the last 3 to 5 years, maybe 5 years now, is this conservation plan supporting the organic transition, and it's the CAP 138. We have a variety of different conservation activity plans, nutrient management, pest management, comprehensive nutrient management plans, but this one's been added here recently, and it's trying to assist those farmers, those producers, trying to make the transitions from conventional to organic. Doesn't take the place of the OSP, it's just to try and assist them to make some of that, maybe get a person involved to develop that plan. And so there's different opportunities with that. Trying to look at the various resource concerns, and then how that ties together with the National Organic Plan. Again, not a replacement for the organic system plan. And then there's a template that was, I guess, about a year old now. That's available in case that's wanted. If anyone's interested, they could contact me for that. Love it when slides don't transfer quite right. Anyways, TSPs, technical service providers, are private individuals that request certification from us to provide assistance for various programs, specifically to implement Environmental Quality Incentive Program, EQIP. There are more TSPs than 4 in Indiana. There's 100 plus. A lot of them do nutrient and pest management, comprehensive nutrient management plans, things like that, forestry plans. But for us, we have 4 TSPs that are available to do the CAP 138, the transitioning to organic. So there are 2 people that physically live in Illinois, 1 in New Hampshire, and 1 in Alabama. You start looking at this, 4 is not very many. We've not.
And I think that actually the 2 in Illinois is the same person. One of them's the person,
Oh, one's the business?
and one's the business.
Okay.
So
And
it's
that could be.
three.
Well,
One
and
in Illinois.
Well, so what happens is we have people that kind of sign up for both, but the individuals have to meet everything to be in the business. So, so anyways, not very many, but there is potential to be able to utilize that. We talked about the practices. It's the same as far as the conservation practices for organic as they are for non-organic. And then when a producer would go to the field office and if they have interest in applying for that, it could be under the general funding pool or it could be under the National Organic Initiative funding pool. And it kind of be a little bit to their discretion. So this year, just wrapping up here almost, fiscal year 18, the Organic Initiative pool, there's about $50,000 to start, and there's about $60,000 contracted for both transition and certified across the state. At the same time, our general EQIP budget is $19+ million. So there's other funds available, and they would just need probably to apply then through the general EQIP. So there's possible that there were a few other dollars or producers contracts that went through the general EQIP. A variety of information out there. I think some of you picked up this publication, Growing Organic. It's been out less than a year, probably a few months, and some real good efforts from national office, putting together materials, updating website, and that as a result of these trainings, been needing to do it for a while, but these trainings help push us along a little bit. Needing to update our own personal Indiana website, so trying to add some other links and pieces to that. Hopefully that'll be done here soon. But a variety of different web resources and that, more than what's just here, and then trying to link to some of the other agencies and organizations that would provide assistance for this.
I'll just say the conservationwebinars.net, there's a lot of really good webinars on there, and you can pull up archives, recordings of them, and you can search on organic. Some of what gets pulled up when you put organic is going to be things about soil organic matter, not just organic production, but there's a lot of organic specific things around dealing with conservation practices that you can find on there. Questions for Tony?
So if we have producers come into our office, I just want to make sure that I'm kind of clear on this so I know which way to guide them. For EQIP, which most people are going to want some sort of cost share funds to help with that transition process, just to make sure I've got this right, the CAP 138 is not the same as the OSP? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that something that can be used towards the OSP, or if somebody, would they start out, I guess, with the CAP plan, kind of get the basics down, and then go to a certifier to develop the OSP before they actually get into the certification process?
Probably need to coordinate on those to make sure that those work and play well together. But that would be a piece where it could help them towards those steps, especially from getting some financial assistance to make some of those transitions as far as putting that plan together and that. I think we've had some discussion about who and how that might happen. And we've had, it's still pretty new. We haven't had very many in Indiana. I think we've had just a handful in Indiana that have been done, maybe less than that, that have been done.
So, well, I just asked because we've had a farmer that's going through this right now where he has a CAP plan in hand, and it wasn't quite as comprehensive as he had hoped. It was kind of canned, and I'm not sure who he went to or anything like that, but maybe that would be something that would just address some of NRCS's kind of things as far as resource concerns, and then that can be taken as a tool to a certifier to develop the OSP, which is the whole comprehensive plan.
Yeah, true. Right? So ours is probably going to be more on the resource concerns and the practices, and would unfortunately be weak in that other part. That's something for us to make sure that we're working with those TSPs, that they're keeping in mind how is that working towards the OSP and coordinating with that. That's a good point.
I think the way that CAP works is that you get money through the contract to basically hire a TSP to come up with a plan of what kind of conservation practices you're going to put in place through transition to get you ready and moved into an organic system. And then you can take that and then apply for like EQIP funds to actually implement those practices and get cost share on those, that where cost share might be available. Okay, and then that CAP plan does not serve as a substitute for your organic system plan. Yeah. Others, so I think Tony made it clear, but just to reiterate, just because you're an organic operation does not mean that you have to apply in the organic pool of EQIP money. You can apply in the general fund because there's a cap on, if you participate in the organic pool, there's a cap, correct?
Right.
That's lower than the general fund.
Yes, and I had that on my head earlier, and I do not now. I think there's an $80,000 total for that, and it's like $20,000 a year. Does that? I'll stick with that, but I wouldn't call that my final answer.
Gonna phone a friend.
Yeah,
I would. I could check my email, and I would have that, but.
yeah. The reality, Tony, is if anybody asks me, I'm going to send them to the NRCS office. But I figured I'd ask this. Of course, if you're applying under general EQIP, what and correct me if my assumptions are wrong, what you're agreeing to do is apply those practices for the next term of the cost share contract. So let me ask, and that would be whether you achieve organic certification or not, correct? Is funding dependent? Let me put it this way: is funding dependent? If you apply for certification under transition,
No.
is the funding dependent on you receiving the certification?
No, that's so for the conservation plan supporting organic transition, it's to assist. It does not mean you have to go the full way through. It does not mean that even if you applied for something under that transitioning, I'm pretty sure that it does not mean it has to go to.
Back if they do not.
I'm real sure that that's not the case. That does not happen. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of looking at some others here to
that
see
Oregon
if,
State.
does that sound right for? Okay.
That Oregon State survey that I briefly touched on in the introductory presentation, they actually took the full sample and split it out into 4 groups: those who became certified, those who were still transitioning, those who were transitioning and gave up, or maybe were certified and surrendered certification, and then I forget what the other one was, but yeah, and it was all people who had participated in the transition pool of EQIP or the CAP 138, and so people didn't achieve certification.
Yeah,
even though they.
normally it's did I apply the practice? So,
Yeah, and so a part of that is,
did I get a piece of paper?
and part of that's the development of a plan. That's the other part. So those caps are plans versus the other where we have conservation practices, the cover crop, the whatever else, where we see that it has been done, it was seeded, we can see it came up and those.